Our story begins with a young man named Kim Jeongeum recounting a tale of woe, a series of events that led him to his current predicament. He begins by stating that a man named Kim Sol had forced him into boxing, leading to a period of hellish training. Jeongeum reflects on why he didn't simply quit, acknowledging that saying no wasn't an option. Instead, he chose the path of a slightly better hell. Later, Kim Sol revealed the true reason, that he simply needed a sparring partner because there wasn't anyone in the junior division. Jeongeum finds this ridiculous. Jeongeum then shifts to his current situation at a logistics center, commenting that he finds himself talking to a robot. He observes the lack of warmth and the scarcity of people at the center and realizes that he must have come to the wrong place. He reflects back to his military discharge about 2 months prior. The joy was short-lived. His family moved to a bigger house in Wajongbu, leaving him behind in a studio apartment near the school. His parents, as a gift for his discharge, paid for the deposit and half a year's rent, initiating his forced solitary living. With this newfound freedom, Jeongeum began his job hunt. He had some savings from the military and the government scholarship for multi-child families, so he wasn't in a rush. He had a vision of a pick-colored romance, starting at a cafe, but reality was not as kind. He was rejected for a cafe job because he had no experience, the reality proving to be harsher and colder than he expected. After a month of job hunting, his boredom was extreme. He was bored and considered himself useless. He contacts his sisters and expresses his feelings. They both tell him he was an idiot for moving into a studio apartment so early, and further stated he should have stayed home. They suggest he come to their gym and point out that it was easy to get a job as a delivery driver. They inform him that even delivery companies use AI to make the work easier. They tell him about PX Fulfillment Center, and that many people his age are working there. Jeongeum finds himself at the PX Fulfillment Center. He reflects on the lack of warmth, and the fact his conversation partner is a robot. He never imagined that finding a job would be this easy. He encounters Manager Shin, who is having an issue with the inventory. Manager Shin tells him that PX is indicating there is still tuna in stock, despite the fact that they are out, and asks that he check the warehouse. Jeongeum agrees and begins to search for the tuna. He comments that he feels like the robot PX feels warmer than Manager Shin. Jeongeum locates the tuna on the first floor. He is surprised that it wasn't where it was supposed to be and comments on the issue as he opens the door. However, as he enters, the door slams shut and locks behind him. Jeongeum realizes that he's trapped, and he attempts to call Manager Shin, but is sent to voicemail. He considers calling for help, but decides against it, since it doesn't seem too serious, and doing so would make things awkward with his manager. Jeongeum, still trapped in the warehouse, decided to wait, hoping the door would open soon. He messages his sister, informing her of his predicament. She finds it humorous, jokingly saying he's working for an escape room. Suddenly, a building collapses nearby. Jeongeum's sister calls him, trying to communicate that something is wrong, but the connection is lost. He hears a voice warning of danger, telling everyone to evacuate immediately and take shelter. He realizes something catastrophic is happening outside, feeling scared. He attempts to get someone's attention, yelling for help. He hits the door and screams that there are people inside. He tries to call 119, but the signal is weak. Jeongeum reflects on the dire situation and realizes that if a war is truly happening, then he might be in serious danger. As he is hitting the door, something appears nearby. Jeongeum instantly understands that he needs to remain quiet to survive. A strange entity moves past the door of the warehouse. Jeongeum understands that whatever was outside the door was definitely not human. The entity passes by the door, and he is left there alone. He realizes that he needs to figure out what to do, and he feels panic start to set in. He sits against the wall, attempting to process the situation, and he hears the sounds of destruction still occurring outside. Time passes, and Jeongeum has been trapped in the warehouse for 3 days. He concludes that since no one has come to look for him, something significant must have occurred outside. He begins to write his thoughts, realizing he doesn't have much battery left and that this will be his last note. The alarms have been quiet since yesterday, which is at least allowing him to get some sleep. Suddenly, a pop-up notification appears in front of him, informing him that he awakened an ability, his own subspace, and that he can store any object in front of him. He thinks he lost his mind, but decides to play along anyway and asks the system to store the entire PX fulfillment center. The system confirms his choice, asking if he would like to store the building. After he confirms, the surrounding area shifts into a desolate and destroyed landscape. Jeongeum looks out at the new view in shock. As Jeongeum surveys the destroyed landscape, a notification appears, indicating that storing has started. The system also informs him that an operating system suitable for his system has been found. His head suddenly feels strange as the update progresses. He remembers the loud roar he heard 3 days ago and wonders if it's a gorilla or a bear. Fortunately, it seems to be passing through. Suddenly, he is confronted by a large, monstrous figure, an orc, that is running towards him, screaming. He feels terrified. The orc is coming closer quickly. Another notification appears, stating that synchronization is complete and he can now enter the subspace. The system asks if he would like to enter. Jeongeum, in a panic, agrees. Jeongeum finds himself within the subspace. He notices that the orc is outside, attempting to get in but unable to cross the boundary. He realizes that whatever happened, he is safe. The system clarifies that without permission from Kim Jeongeum, the master of the subspace, no living thing, object, or energy can enter or leave. He acknowledges the system, expressing surprise that it can speak. Jeongeum is shown inside the subspace, and he is in disbelief at what he is seeing. Jeongeum asks if the orcs really can enter. The system confirms, as he gets a notification stating he has completed his first tutorial and receives a mana stone as a reward. He notes the information that he has received and sees the facility info. It tells him the building is 5 stories and approximately 33,000 square meters. The system shows that it has a shipping speed of 60 kilometers per hour, a limit of 1 simultaneous shipment, and a shipping size limit of 2 meters. Jeongeum is given a warning that maintenance is 2 minutes away, and the system explains that he needs to use the mana stone to power the facility. He is informed that the single mana stone he has can power the facility for 24 hours. He asks how this is possible. The system explains that when storing the facility, the energy system was modified to work with mana stones. Jeongeum is doubtful that 1 small stone can power the entire facility. He notes the system seems to have gotten a bit smarter. The system alerts him that the energy supply has been cut off, which would impact Pax Fresh, a delivery system that stores and delivers fresh and frozen foods. Jeongeum realizes that in the current situation, food is the most crucial element for survival. He knows that the power to the freezers and refrigerators storing the food has been cut off. He asks the system if it can maintain the entire facility for 24 hours with 1 mana stone. It confirms. He asks how to obtain more mana stones. The system tells him they can be obtained from beings of another world. Jeongeum contemplates the meaning of beings of another world. He uses the mana stone to maintain the facility. He asks if he can search for items like before, and the system confirms. He begins searching for weapons and locates a camping hand axe, a kitchen knife, and a folding steel knife. He reflects that these items would be hard to use in close quarters. He decides throwing them is his best option, but he is concerned that there's not much stock of these items left. He is also unsure if the blades would penetrate the orc's muscles. He decides that he doesn't have to kill it in one go, and inflicting a serious wound would be sufficient. He convinces himself to try and commits to the fight. He throws the weapons. The weapons make contact, but they don't seem to do significant damage. Jeongeum realizes the knives are too light, and the only thing that might be effective is the axe, but then wonders about throwing heavy objects, like a bowling ball, to target the joints. He asks PX how much of the axes are left in stock, and the system indicates that there are 15. He notes that there were 15 before, and he wonders why they are duplicating. The system explains that items in the subspace are created by converting real objects into information. Therefore, they can be duplicated, and while they can be damaged, they cannot be depleted. Geongium, realizing that this means infinite stock, decides he can just throw freely. He reflects that he will get tired before killing the monster, and the system tells him that he doesn't have to throw them manually, and he can automatically ship products out of the subspace. It can only ship once every 30 seconds, but that shipping time can be reduced by enhancing the skill. He asks how to do it, and the system explains that if he just thinks of the registered product and says ship, it will be automatically shipped. He says ship, and a knife travels at an incredible speed out of the subspace. Geongium is shocked at the shipping speed, which the system confirms is 60 kilometers per hour. It tells him it can be increased to 75 kilometers per hour, and any further increase would require enhancing the skill. He asks how to enhance the skill, and the system informs him that he can do so with mana stones. Geongium realizes he needs to search for items and locates lightweight combat boots, tactical combat pants, a detailed map of Seoul, and 12 color markers. He locates his home on the map and also marks Dabong District with Jongbu, Gangnam, and Yeoljiro. He decides that if he goes to the nearest place first, then that would be his order. He acknowledges that he must get to everyone safely, noting it's quite far to walk, but he has a decent means of transportation. He locates and decides on a dual-ton Kodiak Sports electric bicycle. He then states to his loved ones to just hold on a little longer. The youngest is coming soon,